What's up guys, my name is Ivan Valdovinos and I create videos on guide to school life and advice. So if you are new here, consider subscribing. In today's video, we are going to look at a statement of purpose for the Master of Arts in Human Rights at Columbia University. Alright guys, let's get right into the statement of purpose. Put that book away and go wash dishes. Education is not for you. Girls are meant to be housewives and must cook and clean for their husbands. They don't need an education. This was the advice I always got from my father. Thankfully, I always had my mother's moral support. She would explain that since my father had a third grade level education, he was not capable of understanding gender equality. After moving over 13 times due to his agriculture job, we had to migrate again. My mother had had enough of his domestic abuse and told him that his 4 children's education was more important than money. After many arguments, my father left us, expressing his disapproval for us preferring an education over a father figure. He immediately stopped contributing financially, and my mother was forced to buy a small trailer in the outskirts of town while holding 3 jobs. Now, 7 years later, all the struggles and sleepless nights have turned into successful decisions that have shaped me into the determined young woman I am today. About to graduate with a double major in Italian and Law, Societies, and Justice, and a double minor in Human Rights and Political Science, I have no regrets. These challenges have guided me to my chosen career path in international human rights, and I hope to tap into my own experiences to help make a difference in the lives of others. So in the introductory paragraphs, the student does a good job with telling a background story about her personal experiences and how those have shaped her decisions, her educational decisions. So she speaks about having an abusive father and that education was not valuable to him. And she uses all those struggles to do better in school and pursue her career goal of being an international human rights advocate. And so she does a really good job of painting a picture to the admissions committee on how she got to that point of her career path. Let's move on. In 2011, I was one of 4 students chosen in the US to enter for Congress in Washington, D.C. This life-changing experience increased my interest in political and social problems. As a House of Representatives intern, I would research information on session laws, bills, and statistics regarding weekly speeches or issues the congressman focused on. After my internship, I became more active in promoting social justice and began raising awareness on international issues through mentoring, volunteering, and interning. During my junior year, my Spanish professor asked our class for volunteers in translating for an event. I was one of a few students who asked her about more volunteer opportunities. And after the first meeting, I realized there was indeed not a single event, but an opportunity to be an interpreter for the University of Washington Law School's Immigrant Families Advocacy Project, an organization that provides representation to immigrant survivors of crime and domestic violence who are eligible to obtain lawful immigration status in the United States. Through volunteering for IFAP, I worked with a team of law students, attorneys, and U visa applicants to provide interpretation services during client meetings and translating documents. Most of the cases I worked with were those of women who had been victims of domestic violence and were applying for U visas in hopes of attaining legal residence here in the United States. Many of their personal stories reminded me that I was not the only woman to have personal experience with domestic violence. There are many others in the United States and around the globe seeking help to prevent further domestic violence abuses. I want to help change the world by finding different methods of preventing domestic violence abuses from occurring. Thanks to the experience I have with working with victims of domestic violence, I would like to focus on 2 of my main concerns: help to change our current policies or shape them to better protect victims of domestic violence with children, and help create more programs that raise awareness on how to prevent domestic violence. So in the next couple of paragraphs, the student speaks about interning experiences that she has had with 2 different organizations, one in Washington, D.C. working for a congressman, and then the other one at her university with the University of Washington Law School's Immigrant Families Advocacy Project. And so both of these experiences are telling the community that she has experience with public policy and policy work, as well as with law and U visa applications, which relates to her career goal of international human rights work. And she wants to focus on preventing domestic violence. And so she speaks about how those 2 experiences are going to help her shape policies and develop policies that help families with domestic violence, specifically women. Let's move on. Today, as a Ronald D. McNair Scholar, I have conducted an independent research focusing on how literature and media sources have portrayed portrayed and or have helped raise awareness on women's rights issues in Italy, specifically regarding domestic violence and femicide. Under the guidance of Dr. Angela Gionorio at the University of Washington, I have gathered data from various documents focused on these issues. In particular, I use synthesis and comparison of Michael Johnson's typology of domestic violence with other literature and social media based on their interpretations and public portrayals of domestic violence and femicide. Similarly, my second project concentrates on how Italy's women's rights organizations and centers assist victims of domestic violence and how they are raising awareness on issues regarding domestic violence and or femicide. As an Italian major, I not only fell in love with Italy's language, but also with its rich and vibrant culture. I have been able to study abroad 3 times and enter for the United Nations of Italy. Particularly, I worked in SIOI, UN Director's Office and Office of Education, assisting with the translation, research, and drafting of UN documents. Additionally, I assisted with WIMUN 2014 and the WFUNA International Model Nations Conference. These opportunities have taught me that Italy doesn't just have breathtaking monuments. It also has a difficult history that has shaped the role of women, making gender inequality culturally acceptable. This view of gender inequality has wide-reaching implications, only one of which is domestic violence. My research provides a different perspective on how to better understand the role of women in Italian society, and my results have been published in the UW-McNair Research Journal and presented at the EIP McNair Research Conference. So in these next paragraphs here, she discusses her research experience and how she was able to look more deeper into issues of domestic violence and femicide in Italy and how that relates to women's rights issues in Italy. These 2 paragraphs are really unique to this applicant because she talks about Italian in a different Italy's history in a different context, but she also talks about working at the UN as an undergrad and interning there and studying abroad in Italy 3 times. That makes it really unique because it shows that she's deeply invested in these issues because she's been traveling to Italy 3 times and tackling some of the hardest challenges for women in the country. She also discusses that her work has been published in her local research journal and that she presented those results at a research conference at her university. Let's move on. As a Latina and the first female in my family attending college, I plan to continue my education at Columbia University in order to make a difference not only in my life, but the lives of others. I want to promote awareness on women equality, and to do that, I need to pursue my master's in human rights studies. By achieving my dream of becoming an international human rights policy advisor, I will not only become a role model for other women of color to pursue higher education, but I will also educate men to respect and treat women as equals. In the future, I hope to unite with international human rights organizations focusing on the prevention of domestic violence and the elimination of women inequality. A master's in human rights from Columbia University will help me achieve that dream. At Columbia, I will learn from others while also assisting the program by contributing new ideas drawn from my own experiences and expertise. I would love to work with Dr. Yasmin Ergaz, who has worked on issues regarding gender and women's rights as an advocate, a scholar, and an advisor. Furthermore, with her previous experience as a consultant to international and domestic policy organizations in both the United States and Italy, I will be able to learn from her and be able to offer new solutions that will increase equality for women globally, both during my time in school and afterwards when I enter the foreign service. Because my interests focus on analyzing women inequality in Italy and the US through comparing how violence against women laws get implemented, I believe Dr. Ergas is the right research faculty for me. Through Columbia, I hope to explore laws concerning domestic violence and femicide, while also researching their effects on the prevention of intimate partner violence. Columbia is ideal for me not just because of this specific program, but also because of its leading expert in human rights policy. So these next paragraphs speak about the why Columbia University. So she goes deep into discussing why that school is the right fit and why the program's the right fit. So she discusses that she wants to work with Professor Yasmin Ergas, who focuses on issues of gender and women's rights, and how she's a great advocate, scholar, and advisor for that, and that she will be able to learn a lot from that professor. She also briefly discusses her career goals afterwards, and she discusses that she wants to work for the Foreign Service, and then she also goes further and says that beyond Dr. Ergas' research, that she's going to be able to gain a lot of knowledge from other experts in human rights policy that are at Columbia University. All right, let's move on. The last time my father saw me wash the dishes was the last time I let him diminish my abilities as a woman, and the last time I let him crush my dreams of attaining an education. Now, even with years gone by, his words still ring in my head, and his angry expression still lingers. I have taken this as a learning experience, and instead of letting it hinder me from pursuing my dreams, it fuels me with passion and desire to make sure that I finish my education so I can help prevent further human rights violations such as domestic violence and women inequality. Women are equal, and education is not a fantasy. It is a dream that can become reality. So in the last paragraph, she ties it back to her introduction and discusses how she didn't let her dad's words and crush her dreams of going to college and fighting for these issues of women equality. And so she does a good job of tying that back in with not just her overall explanation of why she wants to go to Columbia and her experiences, but also to the introductory paragraph. All right, so my final words on this piece is that she's very focused. You can tell that throughout her essay, she speaks about issues of women inequality and domestic violence, and she gives multiple examples that back up that, not just personal, but also educational. So she discusses her work with the UN, her work in DC with representatives, and she talks about her research and how that relates to domestic violence issues and women's rights in Italy. She discusses studying abroad in Italy, and she provides her own personal experiences with domestic violence. So I think she does a good job of staying focused and not steering away from her mission and her goals. All right, guys, so this is the final statement of purpose I'm going to be reading on my channel for this season. Hopefully you receive some good insight on how to get into top graduate school programs. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like and subscribe. Comment down below and let me know what other videos you want me to produce so I can help you get into top graduate school programs. I will see you in the next video.